Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 2022. Another awesome one of new movie from Netflix. Let's try to figure out and look at the story of this wonderful movie. After nearly 50 years of hiding, Leatherface returns to terrorize a group of idealistic young friends who accidentally disrupt his carefully shielded world in a remote Texas town. It's obvious that the producers of Texas Chainsaw Massacre were inspired by David Gordon Green's 2018 reinvention of Halloween and believed they could achieve the same for Leatherface. Once again, there will be a sequel that will bypass all prior films and remakes except the first, and will focus on the story of a survivor. In this scenario, it's Sally Hardesty, Alwyn Fowler, who takes over for Marilyn Burns, who died in 2014, the lone survivor of Tobe Hooper's earth-shattering original. For years, she's been looking for the creature who murdered her friends, and the Netflix original pits them against each other, sorta, by a hair's breadth. Everything in David Blue Garsh's movie is sorta just barely there, other than the gore, which is impressive. It's one of those movies that has certainly gone through the ringer in terms of production. There have been reports of a new directing team and terrible test screenings, but it feels doomed from the start. It's a stunning flop, a film that fails miserably at practically everything it sets out to do. Leatherface is deserving of more. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, believe it or not, is yet another cautionary story about gentrification. I'm not making this up. Melody, Sarah Yarkin, her sister Leela, Elsie Fisher, and their friend Dante, Jacob Lattimore, have arrived in Harlow, Texas, in the middle of nowhere to restore the small town. They're even bringing a bus full of influencers in to check out the facility. The bus may just as well be labeled chainsaw victims. When they arrive, they are immediately confronted by householder Alice Krige, who refuses to go. She turns out to be the situation's Norma Bates, and when she's evicted, her son Leatherface, Mark Burnham, goes on the rampage. Texas Chainsaw Massacre gets off to a promising start, casting Leatherface as a boogeyman in Texas heartland, a character that inspires not only dread, but also a weird fan base who buys orc screws with chainsaws on them, is a great notion that doesn't pan out. TCM is always playing this annoying game of bringing something up and then nearly refusing to do anything with it. Leela, for example, is a victim of a school shooting, but this comes out as exploitative rather than intelligent. The concept of city dwellers who have no idea what awaits them when they leave their safe haven is prevalent in horror, and it was partially defined by Hooper's picture, but this one contributes nothing new. Then, when it begins to flirt with social media in a morbidly funny sequence, it discards that concept as well. In a picture that runs under 80 minutes without credits, but feels twice as long, everything is superficial. And if TCM worked as a horror film, the lack of narrative depth might be acceptable. It's not the case. The gore is aplenty, but the violence's staging and execution are uninspired. There's no suspense, no tension, and no characters to root for. I believe the issue is that the first film's simplicity, a portrayal of everyday people plunged into hell, is so striking that filmmakers have assumed that duplicating that simple template is simple. It's not the case. It takes a specific type of instinctive skill, which Hooper possessed, to abuse such a basic idea with tremendous, unrelenting fear. The majority of his fans aren't as talented as he is. On the other hand, Garsha and his partners aren't really aiming for that austere simplicity, instead littering their terrain with half-baked ideas. Worst of all, Sally's arc becomes a half-assed replica of Green's Laurie Strode retribution narrative from the Halloween film. That film also eschewed years of sequels in order to return a series to its beginnings. The film Texas Chainsaw Massacre tries to do the same thing but gets lost on the way back. Eventually, movie will released on 18th February in this year.